Okay, what do you say we check our mics?
Let's do it. All right, Jerry, check, check. Check. Check, check. Can you hear me, Jerry? John.
Check, check. Testing, 1, 2, 3,
A
testing.
little closer. A little closer, there you go.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3, check, check, testing.
Perfect.
You're going to want to make sure, like you said, that you're really like right in front of that.
Okay.
Just because you want to get quality.
Okay.
Alright.
How long you been doing this?
5 years. Finishing my 5th year.
Cool.
So yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Passion?
Yeah, it gives me a chance to, well, I just like hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
Like yourself. I mean, that's fascinating. It's 9
Yeah.
companies, you started up. I mean, you've been in this business a long time. That's what I like hearing. So that's why I like doing this. So I get a chance to hear
Yeah.
people's stories, meet them, and you know, just learn different things from people.
Right.
So,
How often are you on the air?
once a week, Wednesday, Wednesday, tonight.
Oh, okay. Oh, sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, between drive time back and forth, I live in Rockland, my office is in Roseville. The drive time back and forth, and the show's like 3 hours. So 3-hour block on Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
I don't do a ton of prep for it, as you can probably tell.
It's a conversation, right?
Yeah, because that's what it is. I actually had a guest one time who said, "I've written a couple books in your I didn't even know that.
Right.
You know, so I don't do a lot of, because it's, like I said, it's really conversational interview. That's what I like doing. So,
Yeah.
and give people a chance to tell their story.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
So you live in El Dorado Hills?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm from Chicago originally, but came out to California when I was 19 and got married 30 years ago and moved to El Dorado Hills a couple years after.
Stayed ever since.
Yeah.
Stayed
Yeah.
all
I
along.
love Northern California. It's great.
Yeah.
So before I got married, I moved up here. My sister moved here. And really liked it. And then I got transferred back to LA and
Where in LA?
I lived in a few different places. Hermosa Beach was probably one of the more fun places when I was
Yeah,
single
yeah.
and 19. But Arcadia was where we lived before we came up here.
Yeah, my mother grew up in Arcadia.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Hill
awesome.
a little bit.
Yeah.
On the San Gabriel Mountains, the foothills.
Yeah, it was
so.
great. We walked to Santa Anita Racetrack, and it was, we had a condo there. It was great.
That's a nice area.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. I moved up here in '91 from San Diego.
Okay.
And I really like.
Grew up in San Diego?
Yeah.
What part?
Escondido.
Okay.
So it's North County.
Yeah, I lived in Point Loma for a while,
Okay.
right across from the sports arena.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Ocean Beach
Yeah.
last year. OB.
Yeah.
On what was it? Street, whatever. Anyway, it was right in Ocean Beach. So.
There was a bar we used to go to all the time. It was there was a guy who played down there. This was in 1980. I don't know if you were down there back then or how old you are.
Yeah, I was 16 in 1980. So.
Okay, so you were probably a little younger.
Yeah, I wasn't legally in any bars,
But there was a guy who played. He was so fun to go see, and he was like he was a really good musician. He did parody songs.
Okay.
So all his songs were kind of funny, had a story, but they were good music.
Yeah.
And he was just really fun, and that was in Ocean Beach.
Okay, and OB. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a cool place down there.
Yeah, that's a great area. But then I love being up here. So I just really like Northern California.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a great place.
and this part is great because we're halfway between San Francisco and Tahoe, and so you're not.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd want to live in San Francisco.
I don't know that you find a better place to live and raise kids, and
Yeah.
it's really good.
Exactly. How many kids do you have?
My son's 21, daughter's 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to what high school?
So he's in college. He's actually
But
goes to
now, but
yeah, he goes to Berkeley. He's at
Okay.
Berkeley School of Music in
I went to Jesuit,
Boston.
oh, Jesuit. Okay.
and then I went to Washington for 3 years, and now I'm trying to be a musician, so I'm just starting online school.
So you went to UW?
Yeah.
How'd you like that?
Enough to start doing music.
My sister lives up in that area.
It's a great school.
Yeah, my father as well. So they're in the Seattle area. What musical instrument?
I play the guitar and sing, but mostly the guitar.
Cool. Yeah. Where'd your daughter go to school?
She went to Southern Oregon University.
Okay.
And then she sells real estate up in Portland.
Oh, okay, nice. Oregon's a nice area too.
Yeah, we love it. It's great for both. going
Does
through
she
both
sell
kids.
residential?
Residential, yeah.
How's the market up there?
It's great. It's hot.
Oh, good.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Numbers on Money 105.5. I'm your host, Mark Bellows, at this weekly business talk show. Bring in various business leaders, owners, entrepreneurs, that sort of thing, and have a conversation with them about how they got to where they got to, why they do what they do, all that sort of thing. I'm a tax principal, a CPA with Clifton Larson Allen, a national firm with offices throughout the U.S., including one in Roseville, where I reside. And I do tax planning, strategy, that sort of thing, and this is the end of the year as we're approaching it, so we're working with a lot of our clients on year-end planning, especially with the new tax law, the one that was signed by the President last December. We haven't yet taken into account the one that was introduced by Congress on Monday. That's yet to be digested by all of us as to what that really will mean, but I'll let you know more as we learn more about that. But anyway, if you want to get a hold of me, it's 916-784-7800 is the office number, or mark.bellows at claconnect.com. Love to take your questions or answer any inquiries that you may have. More than happy to meet with you if need be, so let me know. Okay, so today my guest is John Lewis, the founder and CEO of Intellaegis. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Well, thank you.
You have a great voice for radio. I can tell already. This will be good. So tell us real quickly, if you would, what Intellaegis is and does.
We're a software development company out of El Dorado Hills. We built a SaaS platform, software service, called MasterQ. And MasterQ is used for large financial institutions, their lending department, to be able to help them get in touch with customers who they've lost touch with. So we gather data on their customers when they've lost touch with them to try to help the bank get in touch with the customer to help them with solutions to their delinquent loans so that they can be able to rectify any issues or problems they have.
Okay. So, and I got a chance to meet John through the recent Sac Regional Innovation Awards, because
Yep.
MasterQ was nominated for one of the awards.
Yeah, great honor.
Yeah. Congratulations on that, by the way. So this is not your first startup.
It's not.
No, you've done a lot, which is very. It's an interesting story. I'm looking forward to hearing more. Maybe give our listeners kind of a background of you, where you came from, what you went to school for, that sort of thing.
Sure. I'm from, I was born in Minnesota, Vikings fan,
All right.
and raised in Chicago. I was 19.
You didn't go to the Bears?
I was a Vikings fan when I got to Chicago,
So
so
you're
I was a Twins fan, but I became a Cubs fan.
Gotcha.
But I was 19. I came to California on vacation, and I was 18. Loved it. Went back to school for a year. I was going to Eastern Illinois University, and just wasn't a student. I never was in high school, never was in college. I didn't understand the value of the educational part of it.
Right.
And I was 19. I moved to California and lived in Hermosa Beach, down by in South Bay,
Mm-hmm.
and it was excellent. Had a great time living down there, and just started working. And when I was 21 years old, I moved up to Sacramento. My sister had moved here, and I got hired by Chrysler Credit Corporation. They had 400 offices around the country, and
Right.
I worked in the Sacramento office. And the guy said, "What do you think about taking people's cars?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, we finance cars, but if the people can't pay, we repossess their cars. And I said, okay, I'm from Chicago. I've done a few dicey things. I can try that. And that turned out to be my career.
So what was do you remember your first time repossessing a car?
The rules were different back then. There wasn't the regulators that there are now. But I think the first couple of ones that we did were challenging ones where there were guys that I worked with in the office who had done what I had done before, and they were really good at finding people that didn't want to be found.
Right.
So they would locate that individual and tell my boss, hey, I'm going to take Lewis out, and then we would go, we had a key cutter, so we would go take the car. But some pretty interesting, pretty crazy stories back in the day.
I'd imagine so. And again, this was the early 80s?
This was 1982 is when I was hired by them,
Yeah. So as we know, no Google,
right?
no
cell phone, no
no
computer. We had a ledger card system and a piece of paper, like a notebook on our desk with all of our customer accounts.
Right.
Once I came into the office and became a collector. And every morning you'd get in early to get the teletype wire across from Detroit, from the home office, of what your delinquency rate was, how many people had not paid or had paid, and then that would base your workload for the day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Detroit would kick out the list, and then you go from there.
Yeah, all the three main manufacturers, Chrysler, Ford, and GM, were based out of Detroit, so that was where their home offices were, and then they had all these branch locations that serviced all the dealers around the country.
So how long did you work for Chrysler Credit?
I was there for 5 years in a variety of different positions. I started out as a field rep, auditing car dealers and understanding the process of the car getting to the dealer and selling it, and the dealer paying the finance company, knocking on people's doors and collecting payments if they couldn't be collected through the phone, taking their cars, as I mentioned, if that was necessary. It didn't happen too often. You had professionals that could do it, but you it was kind of a manly thing, right? No, I can't give it to the other guy. I got to do it myself, kind of thing, right?
Sure.
And then from there, I became a collector, and then I became a credit analyst, which is really interesting because it was right when FICO just had started.
Okay.
So they teach you how to collect loans, but then they tell you, when I started as a credit analyst, they said, okay, you're going to look at 200 different credit applications that came in over the weekend from a variety of 50 dealers or whatever. And if the score is above 750, just approve it. But if it's below 750, then take a look at it and do what we taught you how to do, to look at a loan and look at a credit app to make a decision. And so I was interested because I started looking at the ones that were 780, 800, and I'm going, I wouldn't buy that deal. I learned enough about the collection process to spot a bad deal. So I put a little initial in the corner of the credit app, and about 6 months later, I started looking at the accounts that had gone to loss or had been repoed, and there were a lot of them that had this score that said automatically buy it because of their algorithm, that it was just getting started, and it was wrong. So the intuitive process of being able to read a credit app and look at the information compared to the automated just buy it because of this number, didn't really work at the time. I'm sure they tweaked it a lot, but still there's a lot of intuitive process involved in artificial intelligence and big data and analysis, things like that.
Yeah. So what would you see that would trigger that for you, that would make you write that down?
Well, the one I laugh about is if the person signed like when I got down to Los Angeles, where you really had a lot of people financing cars, there was a lot of volume.
Right.
The signature, you look for the app would be a first name and a last name, Bob James, James Bob. There are roofers. They had 4 or 5 different occupations, and they signed their name like a 2-year-old, and that meant it was a gypsy. Basically, there's a ring of gypsies running around Los Angeles financing cars, and you can tell immediately just by looking at the credit app. But the FICO score might have said buy the deal.
Huh.
So they were smart enough to be able to go around to the dealers and be able to get their cars. You look at the references. You might make a phone call and check the reference and see did they just pull a name out of a phone book? Did the sales rep write down his buddies as a reference?
Right.
So there was different, what they call stipulations, where if the person wasn't strong enough, they would have other pieces of information that would have to be gathered at the point you make the loan, and you look at the quality of the stipulations to determine if the loan really made sense or not, or if it was somebody just trying to pull a fast one and get a car.
That's interesting. I'm sure that has changed over time as like you said, as algorithms and AI has been brought into this over the last 20-some years, 30-some years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, all right, well, we're going to go to commercial break. We're talking with John Lewis, the founder and CEO of Intellaegis. We'll be right back. You'll listen to Beyond the Numbers. I forgot to mention that Jerry, as we're getting close to commercial, he'll tell me how much time's left, and so when I flash fingers, that's how many minutes are left. So.
Okay.
This is a short break, the one at the half. So
What's the connection? I saw it said Wall Street Radio. What does that mean? Just a good name?
I guess. Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's all marketing.
And this
I imagine probably.
And this is an iHeart station?
Yeah.
Cool.
Because this is all part of Salem Communication. There's 4 stations right here in the building.
Okay.
So it's all part of Salem. So. think it's iHeart, and I think if you listen to some commercials, it's even on another app
Yeah. Okay.
or website or something else.
Hey, you got your own commercial on there.
Yeah, I did. I could actually sell the time if I wanted, but because I pay for this time, so I could resell the time's ads. But I don't have the time or staff to do that. So. And we're back. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers in Mo 1055. Mark Bellows here, your host of this weekly business talk show. Today I'm talking with John Lewis, the founder and CEO of Intellaegis. It's spelled Intellaegis. Intellaegis.com is their website if you want to get more information and find out about MasterQ, which we will get into in a couple minutes here. So you were there for 5 years at Chrysler Credit, and then where did you go, or what did you do?
Chrysler was hired by Mitsubishi to start a finance company, and those gypsy accounts that I told you about, they seemed to buy everyone in Los Angeles, so Mitsubishi was really struggling at the time. They had, Chrysler had another finance division called Chrysler First, so I was actually brought in because I had gotten a name for myself as being pretty good at finding people, so they had a lot of people they needed to find, so they transferred me down to Los Angeles, put me in charge of that branch. I was the branch operations manager for the first operation of Mitsubishi Acceptance back in 88, 87, something like that.
Okay.
And spent a year there and really learned a lot about skip tracing and repossession at a high volume level in Los Angeles. It's kind of the repossession capital of the world, so auto finance capital of the world. There's more cars financed in LA than anywhere. And when you have more cars, you have more issues.
Of course.
So spent a year at Mitsubishi, and then
tell our listeners real quick, what is skip trace?
So if someone skips out on a loan, someone doesn't make their payments, and then you try to reach them at the phone numbers that you have on file, and those phone numbers don't work, the term in the industry is they become a skip.
Okay.
And you trace them down by trying to gather information about that person. You first start with trying to gather as much information on the person as you can.
Right.
But if you still can't find them or contact them, they continue to go delinquent. And every time they get another payment past due and another payment past due, the chances of that account becoming a loss grow significantly. So the sooner that you can find them, the better. So you trace them down with what we used to use were microfiche and crisscross books, or reverse directory phone books.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have a computer to push a button and get this massive amount of information on people. So that's what we did back at Mitsubishi in the day. Was we had a bunch of skip tracers who were gathering data, talking to people, sometimes in the field, sometimes over the phone, trying to locate people.
Great.
Spent a year doing that, and then they wanted to move me back to Detroit and put me in charge of all the skip tracing for Chrysler. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to go back to Detroit. I was from Chicago. Nothing against Detroit, but I like the warm weather.
Sure, yeah.
So I ended up going not the entrepreneurial route yet, but I started to work for a couple of entrepreneurs in the repossession industry. They were willing to pay me more money than I was making, and I was able to really get exposed to what it was like to run your own business and see that. And that was my first exposure into really, getting ready to become an entrepreneur.
And so how'd you, walk us through from that to the point where you actually started your first business?
Well, I was managing a couple of local repossession companies and helping them grow quite a bit. And what really changed my life was I was 29 years old and I met my wife. And we fell in love, got married in a couple months. And
you just celebrated 30
years, yeah,
Congratulations.
on Monday, yeah.
Excellent, congratulations.
And, so I was managing this one repossession company, and she was working at a PS Plus sizes dress store, and she wasn't real happy, and I was kind of doing okay. And she's like, why don't we do this for ourselves? You're pretty good at growing these businesses. I bet we could start our own skip tracing company. And I'm like, there really aren't any skip tracing companies. The banks, either do it themselves or they hire repossession companies. And she goes, well, let's just start a skip company. And I'm like, I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So she went out, literally printed business cards, came up with a name, went to some car dealers, was able to get a bunch of files of accounts that they needed to get. I come home one day, there's a bunch of files on my kitchen table, and she says, okay, I got us some business. That's now $1 billion industry.
Really?
Yeah, pretty crazy.
That is. So how long were you guys in that company?
We started it in 1988. We sold it along with a number of other companies we built that did different things like that in 1999.
Okay.
So about 11 years.
So during that 11 years, you got a chance to take a company from ground up, basically.
Yeah.
So kind of maybe walk us through a little bit like what that experience is like.
You know, it's.
I know that's a broad question, but.
Yeah, I don't think we really had any expectations. I think we borrowed 15 grand. We had borrowed $15,000 from. We first started the skip company, and then we were using the repo company I was working at to pick up the cars. Then the owner of the company kind of like, John, you're my biggest customer now. This is not going to work out. And there was definitely a conflict of interest that was coming about, but we didn't really see it because we were kind of naive. And then eventually we're like, okay, yeah, we really need to go start our own business, and we did. And we borrowed $15,000 from one of the repossessors' dads, who we said, why don't we start our own repo company? So we'll have a repo company, a skip company, and paid him back within a month or so. I think worked out of his, an office above his garage, and built what became one of the larger repo companies in Los Angeles pretty quick. And you go out, take a couple cars, and then you stop at the office supply store and pick up invoices and bill a client. I mean, we were literally that rudimentary. There was no business plan. There was just, we knew what we were doing, and we just did it.
And then at some point you probably hired some employees.
Yeah, the hard part's hiring repossessors. That's a very skilled trade. There's a reason why there hasn't been a nationwide repossession company built. There's a lot of, it's very, very difficult business to do, as you can imagine.
Yes.
But yeah, you'd hire trainees, and we would train these guys, and we didn't have the money to go buy tow trucks, so we trained them how to be locksmiths. So you train them how to, how to pick a lock, how to take apart a steering column, and how to, tear down a steering column and be able to start a car with a screwdriver and drive a car with a vice grips instead of a steering wheel. It's pretty crazy back in the day, before the computer chips and all the electronic ignitions. And
I'd say it's probably a little different nowadays.
A little different,
sure. With the different type of ignition.
Yeah, for $5 you put a dent puller into a Ford ignition and slam out the ignition, and put a screwdriver in, start the car, and drive away. Replace the ignition.
Right. And
it's cost you $5.
So you in the course of 11 years, how many employees did you get up to? What size?
The biggest company that we've had was here in El Dorado Hills. They're still in business today, and there was about 150 people when we sold the company in 1999.
Okay.
They have several hundred people now. I think they're still the largest in the industry that we started.
And one of the things you and I talked about off air is that as an entrepreneur, you're good at, and enjoy starting companies and getting them to a level, and then it's not your skill set, or it's not your passion or whatnot to continue to run it at that point, which is maybe when you sell it or that sort of thing. So how do you kind of figure out where you're going to get at that point, John?
It's really an interesting question and evolution that you go through, especially after you've done it a few times. I think it was something I didn't understand after the first couple companies. I read something the other day that said the reason you raise money is to hire people that are smarter than you, and I thought that was really relevant.
Yeah.
And we've been able to surround ourselves with some really smart people who have helped us in the current endeavor that we're in. But I remember my brother called me one time. He's like, John, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. And he goes, no, you're not. I'm like, what do you mean, no, I'm not? He goes, you're a president of a company. You're running a business. If you were an entrepreneur, you'd be starting another business. That's what entrepreneurs do. Yeah. And I never really thought about it, but it really made sense after he said that. And there's a lot of, the creative part of building a business is really exciting and really fun. It's hard, of course, but there's a lot, in there that I think lends credence to what you're saying, that after a while, you kind of want to keep creating, but now the business is running, and you don't want to distract the core focus of the business by creating other things. You want to build that one thing that sells and works really well and just go after it. And that's not an entrepreneur, that's a business owner. That's a person running the business, running the company. Yeah.
So the other businesses you started, have they all been in the same general line of business?
Yeah. Yeah, everything has to do with auto loans, everything, and really it broadens out now, where we really focus on auto loans because that's what I knew. But we've had several repossession companies. We've had a couple of different skip tracing companies. We built another software company inside of MasterQ. So we had the opportunity to build a routing software that was used by a lot of the rideshare apps, where they've got cars they finance and they're not able to recover the cars, and they need help routing the repossessors along with all of the other assignments they have from the banks, and how can they do that more efficiently. So we built that, sold that a year ago. And so everything related to default loans, basically. And now you see there's more debt than there's ever been. There's trillions of dollars in consumer debt right now, and there's more delinquent debt than there's ever been. So there's a real opportunity to take a product like we've built into multiple different areas, and that's what I think is going to be exciting about the evolution of MasterKey.
So you sold the companies in '99, and then what did you do after that? Because you started MasterQ in '07, right? So what did you do over the course of the next 7 or 8 years?
Start tour with the Rolling Stones.
Did you really? Oh.
I really took time off. We bought a house, played golf, kept working. I mean, started to, the housing market was great in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So we bought a lot of invested our money in properties and then refurbished the properties, rented them out, sold them. So have done a number of things along those lines. Started a couple companies around real estate development. I started a line of executive suites called My Executive Space. I had an office in Fair Oaks, Sacramento, and El Dorado Hills. And then after my non-compete expired, one of my clients called and asked if I would come in and help them, just because I had a lot of connections and knew the auto finance industry. And after spending a year with him, I saw the technology. And it was amazing how from 1999 till 2006, the technology had evolved.
Oh, sure.
And all of a sudden, you could push a button and find anything out about anybody.
Right.
You didn't have to do what we had to do in the past to try to find out little pieces of information. It was just all there, but it was too much. It's like information overload.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought if you could take that information and gather it more efficiently and organize it and then track the results of how you used it, you could build some type of a software platform around doing that to make the data more efficient. Nobody was talking about big data, artificial intelligence, and that stuff at the time, right?
Right.
But really, that's what we were doing.
Yeah. So is that what the genesis?
That's what MasterQ is. Yeah,
okay.
it's a platform that's used to take a very rudimentary. It's not as manual as it used to be. I mean, we literally had phone books in the back of the office that we would go look up, and microfiche that were 2 years old of property records.
Yeah.
So that's really manual.
Sure.
Or go to the courthouse to get information sometimes, or go out and knock on people's doors. But when the data came online, and all of a sudden there was this massive amount of data, and there's a lot of data online that anybody can see, but this is data that's regulated, right? So it's all, it's all regulated by who can see it. Do you have access? Do you have a fiduciary right to that level of data? The customers agreed to allow the people to look for that data if they lose touch with the customer or what have you. So it's all legit as far as how it works.
Right.
But it's also, you have to be very careful about the power of the data, because there's a lot of information.
Right.
So basically, that's what we did is we figured out how can we gather that data more efficiently. So we integrated with all of the major data providers, and then we figured out how to organize it, dedupe it, put it into a workflow platform to be able to distribute that information to the collector instead of them using intuition and manually going looking for it. Here's a phone number, make a phone call. Here's another phone number, make a phone call, and just get back to the basics of collections, which is you got to talk to people if you're going to find somebody that you've lost touch with.
Yeah. So when you were getting MasterQ going, you must have had some programmers.
Yeah.
Or did you do the programming? Or?
No, I had one guy who my partner in the beginning was a complete rock star.
Okay.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. So you had programmers, and then eventually you had a product that you could take to market. And
Yeah.
so who's your first customer? Is it the one who contacted you?
So the NDAs don't let you say who the customers are,
Okay.
but they're the biggest banks in the country.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started a skip tracing company, and the idea was first build a company and get accounts to find people, do it the way everybody else is doing it manually, build the software, and then see if the software works on the most difficult accounts. And there's news stories on our website about us finding fugitives that the district attorney was looking for years for, and we found them in 5 minutes. And that's just because the power of the data is there.
It's there. You just have to be able to find
Gotta
it
get
and
through
then
it.
put it. Yeah, to get through it. And that's what you guys have been developing with MasterQ.
Right.
All right, good. Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to commercial. We'll be back in a couple minutes. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers on my 105.5.
Okay, I got the Stones in.
How long were you on the road with them?
I've seen them a lot of times. I've been a fan for my whole life, and their tickets go on sale today for a new tour. They still keep playing.
I know.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You seen them before?
I have 1980 in San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
So
81.
long time ago.
I was at that show.
Yeah.
Jack
Is that
Murphy
81?
Stadium.
Okay, yeah, at the Murph. Yep.
Yeah. Good show.
Do you want more water?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Okay. That's the only time I've seen it though. Did you go see him by chance in Havana when they played there?
No, I kind of
Years
I
ago.
thought about it, but it's just you're busy. It's just it's hard.
Yeah.
We saw him. My son and my wife and I saw him in Scotland in the summer last summer.
Oh, really?
And they're great. They're all sober for the first time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're good. It's amazing. 75 years old. And Mick's just absolutely amazing. And they're a tight band.
Yeah. We've been together for 60 years? Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, close to 60 years. Yeah, I saw him when I was 15, first time in Chicago, and it was a big influence on my life, and I've seen him a number of times since then. So, good stuff.
That's good. And you got it in the movie, so.
Yeah. How am I doing, keto?
You're doing great.
Okay, good.
I would say that speaking a little fast at times, maybe.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, fine.
I shouldn't say anything
No,
though.
it's fine. That's good to know. I have a tendency to do that from Midwest. So where else do you have offices at?
CLA, they're all around the U.S. So I was with a company called Galena that merged into CLA 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so Galena had 4 offices in the Bay Area and here and Ontario and Southern California. And so that was CLA's entrance into California. So we still have the 3 offices in the Bay Area now, 1 here, 1 in Ontario, 1 in Pasadena, 1 in Newport Beach. So that's kind of California presence. Then we've got them in Vegas and Reno and Washington State and Arizona. A lot in Minnesota and Wisconsin and Ohio.
Sure.
The Midwest is a huge presence because CLA generally works with small, medium-sized businesses.
Yeah.
So a ton of manufacturers and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, that's like a big area for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool.
we go to Florida, East Coast, so Texas.
Okay.
So nothing international. We have an international affiliation, so we don't have any international firms.
Is it like a franchise or?
No, it's CPA firm. It's like a Price Waterhouse or
Okay.
Kippers or so. We're the 8th biggest. So
Wow.
you got the big 4 and then the ones below. And then
Used to be the big. There was.
used to be the big 8.
Right. Yeah.
When I joined, it was the big 8.
Right.
And then it went down to 4.
Yeah.
And now you've got the same big 4, which are like much bigger than the next tier. So
PwC, one of them.
yeah, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, and Ernst.
And
Those
Arthur
are the
Anderson
4.
is gone.
Yeah. After Enron, they went away.
Oh, that's right.
And a lot of them went to KPMG.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers on Money 1055. This is Mark Bellows, your host of this weekly business talk show. I'm a tax principal, a CPA with Clifton Larson Allen, a national firm with offices throughout the U.S., including one in Roseville, which is where I'm at. I'm on the tax side of the business, and I do tax planning, tax strategy, that sort of thing. And we're busy now working with clients on year-end planning. So if anyone wants to talk with me, has questions or whatever, more than happy to talk to you. You can get a hold of me at 916-784-7800 or email me at mark.bellows@claconnect.com. You can also go to our website, claconnect.com, and find out all the different things that CLA does. Very much a full-service professional firm, a lot more than just accounting and tax. And our tagline is that we create opportunities for our clients and for people, and so that is what I'm part of today, which is great. And so today, our guest has been so far, and continues to be, John Lewis. John's the founder and CEO of Intellaegis. Now, you started MasterQ. We were talking about this right before the break. You started MasterQ up in 2007. So was Intellaegis formed at that time?
Yeah, we started a company first called Find John Doe, which was, again, my wife is she's my business partner and life partner, obviously, and smart one of the relationship. But she's like, what are we going to do? I go, we're going to find people. She goes, okay, we're building software though. I go, yeah, but first we're going to build a company that can find people, and then we'll build the software and see if the software works to find people easier and better. And she said, okay. She said, find John Doe. So I go Google it and go to GoDaddy, and the .com's available. So we bought the domain Find John Doe, and within a year we had kind of formed the idea behind the software. We had been really lucky. Our accountant locally here had been with us for years, and he referred us to a gentleman in El Dorado Hills who said, hey, this guy really understands security. He would be great for you to deal with. He's built software companies. So he came in and just kind of learned the security side of the industry with us, and has really helped us get through what you need to get through when you have the amount of data that we have. And he helped us be able to find the main developer that we started the business with to be able to help us start to write the code that we had architected with the idea of how to build this software to automate the gathering of data and being able to determine which pieces of data were more relevant.
Right. So you guys developed the software, continued to grow and develop the software, and then you at some point you started going out to banks. Yeah.
So we there's another individual that we met here locally that we knew. I've had a lot of mentors, which is really and I saw that you do mentoring through Sac State.
Right.
And I love that. Love to do it, and also love to be mentored, because there's always people that have done things that are smarter than you are. And there was a guy, Bob Stepanovich, who ran one of the local credit unions here, and he said, John, you need to launch the software. You need to have like an official launch. So he found a website called Finovate, and which was just when FinTech was becoming a term,
right,
and said, why don't we launch the software at Finovate? So we applied, and they accepted us. 600 applications. They took 60 people, and you get up on stage, and you can even go to Finovate and see our spring of 2011 demo, 7 minutes live on stage, no PowerPoint, of here's your software.
Right.
So it was a little bit of pressure, but it was cool.
There is, yeah. A lot of the people in terms of when they're looking for funding do things like that. And I've been involved in some of those in different aspects, and it's always interesting to see when you have 6 minutes or so in some cases, or 7, to give your story, to tell your story, because
it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. But I mean, the audience, the people with money or who are looking for an investment opportunity, they don't have time to spend hours with each one. So.
Yeah, I think they can, and we funded it ourselves, my wife and I, and then we brought in a couple of mentor angel investors locally, Steve Schroeder and Brad Jenkins, who are 2 local successful business people in Sacramento. Steve built CoreLogic, Brad built O1 Communications. Started JPSnet, which was one of the first internet companies here in Sacramento. So we had some really great people.
I think I used JPSnet.
Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, Brad's one of the guys who helped save the Kings. I mean, he's one of the entrepreneurs that got in and put some dough in to be able to get the big whales in for the money to keep our team.
Nice.
And Steve built CoreLogic, probably one of the most successful data companies ever.
Yeah.
$3 billion company now, and all around kind of the same concept that we had, but he did it in the mortgage industry. So having those types of mentors really helped. And between those and the original partners we had a guy who could write code like Mark Zuckerberg, and we had the guy who was helping us with Jack Mary, who was helping us in terms of the security aspect of the business. Really helped us a lot to put this team together for Pearl and I, my wife, to be able to kind of get us to where we are now.
Right. And so, so you started getting some customers and starting to get some traction. So, real quick, the Finovate, did you do a lot of practice before you went up on stage?
Oh yeah. Steve had us really drilling it. So we had a speech set, but what I learned after watching all the other demos was it really wasn't about you kind of knew it anyway. So rehearsing it, it wasn't as important as just know your main bullet points and get up there and talk and show the system. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And because people are if we weren't going for an investment, but if we were, the people investing in you, they're investing in you as a person because they believe in you, not because you have to have the product too, but it's equal.
Yeah.
You have to believe in you.
Well, I know that when I've been through some of these, and years ago in Chico State had a thing like that, and then various investors, and a lot of times the questions for the presenters when they have the question part would be, who's your team?
Right.
Because that's what like you said, that's what they're investing in. Yeah.
It's huge. We just did a press release a couple days ago where we brought in a gentleman's name's Bill Plough. He's might be one of the most successful people in history of auto finance. This guy broke up a $6 billion Ponzi scheme for Ally. He helped, or for GMAC. He helped he was the guy who kind of created the online auction process for them when eBay was selling cars and GM wanted to start selling cars online, and he ran all their collections. And he saw our software and said, wow, if I would have really known that before I retired, how that software could have helped us, that's a huge deal. So he came on board with us just recently, and it's unbelievable to be able to have people like Steve and all the people we've been able to work with through the years. And we've got just got a great team too. The staff's great.
Right. Yeah, I think as you're talking about the mentoring, I've been mentored throughout my career too, and that's really helped me get to where I am today. It's been fantastic. And the chance to mentor students has been great. And as you mentioned, Sac State, I mentor students. I've mentored students from San Diego State, where I got my master's, and then also from the University of Colorado, where I got my bachelor's.
Right.
I had a chance to, it's always with accounting students, because that's my field of expertise in tax. But you mentioned you enjoy mentoring as well. And so if any colleges are listening, let's put out a plug for Joe.
Yeah.
He's definitely interested. So.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Especially in cybersecurity, that's what's really, I think, hot right now. Cybersecurity and coding are the two things that are really on the top of the list as far as if somebody asks me what should I go to school to learn. I mean, it's all about data, it's all about computers, and those you have to protect the data, you have to be able to deliver the data, and that's cybersecurity and that's code writing.
Yeah.
And then sales and marketing. You need to be able to market the product and sell the product.
Absolutely, yeah. If you can have the greatest product in the world, but if you can't market or sell it,
That's right.
No.
That's right.
Yeah, and big data is big. It's I know that data analytics. At CLA we've got a whole group that's devoted to data analytics and how we can incorporate that with our client base. And excuse me, I was talking to the dean or the head of the graduate program at Davis,
Right.
And they're developing some data analytics courses there. So that's really big. And you mentioned earlier that really wasn't around way back when, but it certainly is now, and that can really affect and change how you do things.
Yeah, it's interesting when we launched Affinibate, we talked about predictive analytics, and then all they did was really just change the name to artificial intelligence. And
right.
And what we've learned is that the brain is definitely smarter than the computer, but the computer can do things the brain can't do because it doesn't forget, it doesn't have bad habits. So if you can look at data through a computer, it makes sure that you see all the data you need to see, and you can predict to some degree the order you want to see it in terms of the basic functionality. But when you add the brain to that and you add the manual part to it, and we call it artificial intuition. So it's the intelligence of the data plus the intuitive part of the person that's using the data. The combination of those two becomes really powerful.
Yeah,
and that's what I think we're really starting to tap into now and see that.
And so you've recognized that. You guys have recognized that. And so
Absolutely.
That's you're taking that into account.
Yeah, because you can't push a button and just find somebody. Sometimes you can, and sometimes that happens, but it's not going to happen on the most challenging and difficult fugitives you're trying to find or what have you. So you want to be able to have, there's a lot that you learn as an investigator when you're working these cases, and you can't even describe what it is you do a lot of times. You just do it because your brain tells you what to do.
Right.
So, but the problem is there's also bad habits that go with that, because sometimes you get down a rabbit hole, or you take too long, or you can't work a certain amount of cases or what have you. So you really want to take the automation and the data gathering part to the very earliest stages, in our case, collections, and help people get in touch with their customers sooner by trying to just add this massive amount of data and then filter it down to, here's the best number, make a phone call, here's the best number. But when you get to the later stages of trying to locate people, you're really looking for a needle in a haystack, and a lot of times you need that intuitive part that's looking at that data that's already been gathered automatically, and now you're adding a little bit of intuitive to it.
And you guys have done that with MasterQ.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. Yeah.
So I kind of want to go a little bit more into what all MasterQ does. I know we're going to go to commercial break in a minute. So you mentioned that you had developed repo route and you sold that. So do you have other besides MasterQ? Have you guys got other projects that you're working on?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur,
right?
But my partners say John, focus. So I try not to let those ideas come out too much.
Okay.
You really have to. That's one of the challenges is you have to in business just mono focus on one thing, but you have to figure out what that thing is first.
Right.
And in software, sometimes it's difficult because you got to throw a number of different ideas and thoughts at something at a problem until you can find what that solution is. And that's where Bill, as an example, who just recently joined our organization, that's one of the things that he saw. He was running a 2,000-person collection shop around, the biggest auto lender in the country, and he's like, this product here, if you can just deliver a phone number to me and I can make a phone call and I can have people making hundreds of phone calls a day to the right people, that itself just solves the problem.
Great. Okay, we're talking with John Lewis, founder and CEO of Intellaegis. You're listening to Beyond the Numbers. We'll be right back.
Got a nice view.
Yeah, isn't this?
Yeah, it's funny. I was in Indiana a few weeks ago, and I was just taking pictures of all the trees because I'm like, I haven't seen this. But then when I came back here, it made me realize we have all the colors here that, that you just don't really recognize it as much.
Yeah, we definitely. Our middle daughter's going to San Diego State. So she came up for Thanksgiving and she was taking pictures because down in San Diego you really don't,
see it.
But you do up here. We've got a lot of fall color.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, and I think in there it's all change, right? So you don't see as much of the green.
Yeah,
so
here we
here
still
you
have
see 50-50, right?
Right. And we're back. You listen to Beyond the Numbers in Money 1055. This is your host, Mark Bellows, weekly business talk show, where I get various business leaders, owners, directors, that sort of thing, people to talk about their business, what it is they do, and why. And it's always an interesting conversation. I love having entrepreneurs on when I can get them, and today I have one of those. If you want to get a hold of me at my office, it's 916-784-7800 or mark.bellows@claconnect.com. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about any tax questions you have, thoughts, ideas, concerns. Give me a call or shoot me an email. So today we're talking with John Lewis, the founder and CEO of Intellaegis. If you want to look at the website or get a hold of John, you can do it through the website, intellaegis.com, INTELLAEGIS.com. And as we talked about earlier off the air, how did you guys come up with the name Intellaegis?
Again, the team, right? It's all about the team.
Yep.
So Danny Tirapelli, I call him. He says, whenever somebody says Danny, I know it's from you. So Danny's a local graphic designer, and he just said the name should mean something. So it goes through the process. What are you doing? And we kind of went to some Greek words, and aegis means strength, and intel is obviously intelligence. So put together that the .com was available and came up with Intellaegis.
So you had findjohndoe.com,
right?
And then did you start developing MasterQ and then set up Intellaegis, or?
So Intellaegis was the corporate. So it started out as Find John Doe workbook, and then when we realized, okay, it's not going to be part of Find John Doe, that's a separate entity, we formed Intellaegis, and then Intellaegis became its own corporation, and MasterQ was the flagship product. We did a partnership and built Repo Route, and then we ended up selling that a year ago to Steve. Steve actually saw the value in that and purchased it and built some analytics around it. And then is in the process, I think, again, of selling that again to someone else who saw the value that is going to take it on.
So, MasterQ. So it's we've kind of talked about it throughout the course of the show and we built up to it. But maybe tell us again what kind of go into what MasterQ is and does for its customers, its users.
All the banks, all the lenders have a loan servicing system that they use, and they're typically these old legacy systems that all the loans go in there. And when someone goes delinquent, they call the phone numbers to reach the customer. They typically have one or two phone numbers in the address and the auto finance case collateral information.
And this is maybe the number that the person put on their app when they first applied for the loan.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay.
And then there's all kinds of regulatory rules around when you can call them, how you can call them. And it used to be just federal rules, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, but now there's also state rules. So you have to stay on top of the federal rules, the state rules in regards to how you contact the people. But the problem is if you're calling and calling and calling and you're not reaching the person, then what happens is you need to be able to get in touch with them because you can't help them if you can't talk to them. So the collectors will go out and start to gather data from websites from different companies, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, LexisNexis, all the big data providers that have data on people, and then a lot of the niche data providers that have specific data on people. And they'll gather this data manually, and they'll then start to try to locate the customer through this data. And so what we thought is if we could automate the gathering of the data so that nobody has to go log into different websites, they can just all access it through our platform that we built, which is very similar to a loan servicing platform, but it's kind of a niche that sits on top of the loan servicing platform to find people. Because the loan servicing platform isn't there to find people, it's there to contact people. If that's not working, then you need a platform like MasterQ that can gather all the data in one place, organize it, and then display the data in what we call a call queue. Call this number first, call this number second, call this number third. And we do that based upon predictive analytics that we put on the data.
Yeah, so AI basically used to determine that. first call, first, second, third, that sort of thing.
Correct.
And so they use this and have had great success.
Yeah, we are typically able to increase their what they call right party contacts. So they want to be able to contact the customer or a person that can help them contact the customer, and they do their best to try to track what those percentages are. They're very low; they're in the single digits when they're trying to reach their customer. And what we're able to do is take the data, look at the quality of the data. So we say, oh, you know, this data provider has a higher right party contact than this one does, or they have more recent data. And then you're able to filter that data in order of who to call first, and you're increasing the right party contact rate, so they have to make less phone calls to reach the customer, or to reach someone who knows the customer that can get a message to them to call you. So it's a whole process that we just automate and just make it easier. And it's, you know, right now it's in auto finance, but certainly whether it's credit card or student loan or anything, even, as I said, there's even some videos on our website about where we've known some local DAs who have said, hey, I got this fugitive, I can't find him, can you help us? And I'm like, yeah, bring all your investigators in and let's sit down and do it in person. And in one case, we found this gal in 5 minutes.
Wow.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So that's basically what MasterQ is about.
That's what MasterQ is about. It does a lot of things, but it's really a contact management platform.
Right.
It's really a way to efficiently and in a way that the regulators and you know, you think about all the cell phone calls you get. I mean, how many phone calls do you get on your cell phone that you don't want, right? Because they're using these dialers because they're not following the rules.
Yeah.
They don't have permission to call us on our cell phone, but nobody's on top of that. The FCC, I just saw something yesterday where they said we just don't have the manpower to regulate this stuff.
Sure.
So all these companies are out there, fly by night. You know, I'm going to call as many numbers as I can, and the debt collectors are more heavily regulated, so they can't do that.
Right.
So we have to give them a, you know, have to, but that's what we do, is we give them a platform to organize the data so that their people aren't all gathering data, and then be able to track the results from an efficiency perspective, but also from a regulatory perspective, and try to make it as simple as possible. Here's the phone number, make the call. Here's the phone number, make the call. And it works well.
So if someone of our listeners has a desire to learn more about MasterQ, maybe even look into actually acquiring it for their use, go to your website, intelligis.com.
Yeah. We've got, you know, a team of people. Jared Kirby is our new business development specialist who really understands the platform well. You can hit him up on LinkedIn. You can go to our website. You can hit me up on LinkedIn too, or just go to intelligis.com. There's a sales at intelligis.com demo request that you can go to. We'll set up a demo and you can see the platform.
Okay, so Jared Kirby
Yep.
On LinkedIn, or John Lewis on LinkedIn. Both of
Yep.
them are ways to get that information, as
Yep.
well as go to the website. So you've started 9 companies. You've
My
learned
wife
a lot.
and I have started
Your
9
wife,
companies.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Perla.
Perla. Yep.
Okay, Perla. You and your wife have started 9 companies, and so certainly you've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah.
And I gotta imagine you've had some challenges along the way as well.
Always.
I never like to call it a failure, but learning opportunities, things you learn from.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on any of those, or tell us about any of those that you've kind of learned along the way?
You know, I was talking to my brother. My brother-in-law's in the industry too, and he just had a successful exit selling one of his companies, and we were talking the other day just about how challenging businesses and our business, because we're in the repossession business for one part, and then you know, it's a very difficult business, let alone dealing with all the technology and regulatory rules and everything else. So you have to stay ahead of all that. It's tough as an entrepreneur just to have, you know, you've got to just be focused. You just have to focus, and it takes a lot of hours, so you have to be willing to put in those hours that Saturdays, Sundays, weekends, holidays, and your family has to be able to understand that. And that's hard too, because you have to find some work-life balance, but that's a challenging thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Luckily we've been successful at each of them so far, so we haven't had any failures. We've sold 8 of them. We're on number 9, and we're not really there trying to sell it. We're there trying to basically build something that can again change the way people do this type of work for the better. And then eventually, as you said, you know, somebody's going to come along that's smarter than us and see the value that we could really bring, and probably partner with them and be able to help grow the business.
Right. So that's good. Interesting stuff. I appreciate all you've been telling us today. So you're talking about the work-life balance. Is one of the things that you like to do is follow the Rolling Stones.
I was 15 and I saw the Rolling Stones in Chicago, and had a pretty big influence on my life. And so I've seen them a number of times when I had that kind of hiatus where I was off work. I was able to actually meet them and spend a little time with them, which is pretty unusual. And as a result of that, got to see more. And, it's a long story. I was writing a screenplay actually, and trying to make it into a movie, and was able to get to meet Keith Richards. But Keith's not the movie guy. Keith's the music guy. Mick's the movie guy, and I never was able to meet Mick. No. But through that, I was able to get to know them a little bit, and as a result of that, I've been able to meet them and travel around a little bit, go to see some shows, and get a little different access than most people get, and that's been great. I saw them in Scotland last summer. Tickets went on sale today for their tour, and they're, it's amazing that they're still playing. 75 years old, and it's crazy. That is amazing.
Yeah. So were you a screenwriter in LA?
I just, I've always liked to write, and everybody said, John, you got this story, you got to tell your story, and obviously in the repo business, you have a lot of stories, and you build companies, blah, blah, blah. So I started to write, and I was writing a novel, and I reached out to Keith Richards, and he introduced me to Ben Fong Torres, who was one of the writers for Rolling Stone, and was able to go and meet him in San Francisco, and he read what I had wrote and said, you ever read a novel? I said, maybe a little bit. He goes, yeah, you don't know how to write a novel. He goes, but this is a screenplay. So he kind of mentored me, as again, mentoring. Yes. He mentored me and was just a great guy, and was able to look at what I wrote, and then he referred me to a guy at UCLA called Lou Hunter. Lou Hunter wrote a book called Screenwriting 434, and I got to be friends with him and spent 3 weeks at his house in Nebraska in the middle of summer one year and wrote a full screenplay. And then my wife's like, okay, this is not going to work.
Did the screenplay ever go anywhere?
I won some awards, but it didn't, it was a $30 million blockbuster, and I didn't have the funding, I didn't have the experience, so really tabled it and got back to business. Okay. It was fun writing them.
Well, and do you do any more writing today?
I blog, I blog for my business.
And where do we find the blog?
On the website, yeah.
So if you want to find the blog about from John, you can look at Intellaegis.com. You can listen to Beyond the Numbers on Money 105. John, again, thank you for being on the show today. Appreciate it. Congratulations on the nomination for the Regional Innovation Award.
Thank you so much.
Continued success to you.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.